I mean, gender may not be binary, but politics is. You only get two choices. And the stuff that they are afraid of, they see Donald Trump as a bulwark against, you know, and that stuff is a lot closer to the home.
Bill Maher walked onto The View and did something no one expected. He challenged the woke agenda right in front of the panel.
Concerned about the fact that the International Criminal Court just today issued a subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu.
Well, that's ridiculous.
And the reaction? Absolutely priceless. Sonny Hostin thought she had a perfect gotcha moment lined up. She attempted to call out Maher's use of the term woke, acting as if she was about to educate him on its meaning. But Maher? He wasn't having it.
Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want, because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left?
Instead of backing down, he flipped the entire conversation, forcing Hostin to scramble for a response. And just when it seemed like the exchange had peaked, Maher took it a step further. He called out double standards, exposed contradictions in the left's rhetoric, and challenged mainstream narratives.
In the first segment, you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
By the end of it, the room was dead silent. So, what exactly did he say that had viewers talking? And why did it leave even some of the panelists rethinking their arguments?
The term woke, when you look it up in Webster's dictionary, which it really is there, is about being aware of social inequity, social injustices, and fighting those. And that is a good thing. The term has been co-opted by the right. The term has been co-opted by the far right, by the alt-right. And the term has even been co-opted by Bill Maher himself. He is comparing woke with identity politics.
Let's break it down. Maher wasn't there to cause controversy. He appeared on The View to promote his new book, likely expecting the usual debate and discussion. But that didn't last long.
Don't tell me that the left hasn't changed. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sonny Hostin saw an opportunity and took it. She brought up Maher's use of woke, positioning herself as if she was about to explain why the term is problematic. Her tone suggested she expected Maher to fold, but instead he turned the discussion in a direction no one anticipated.
That's why Trump could get reelected. That woke is a word used by the black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and
migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate.
The setup was obvious from the start. Sonny Hostin framed her argument carefully, saying, "I was surprised to hear you use that term, because historically, it comes from the black community to discuss social justice."
In the first segment, you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
Okay.
Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left? But don't tell me the left
Or maybe the super far right.
Well, he's talking about the left. Well, then
okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat.
At first, it sounded like a reasonable point, but the way she said it, it was clear. This wasn't just a simple question. She was setting a trap, implying, "Oh, so you're one of those guys now?" But Maher, he saw it coming a mile away. Instead of getting defensive, he did what he does best. He flipped the conversation entirely, and that's when the discussion went completely off the rails. Maher didn't flinch, he didn't stutter, he didn't backpedal. He calmly and directly countered her argument, explaining, yes, woke used to have a positive meaning, but words evolve, and now it's used to describe something entirely different. The statement stopped Hostin in her tracks. She expected him to retreat, to reframe his stance, but instead, he challenged the very foundation of her argument. With that single response, the conversation took a sharp turn, forcing the panel to reevaluate their position in real time. You could see the shift in Sonny Hostin's expression. She wasn't expecting that response. She likely thought Maher would backpedal, offer an apology, or attempt to reframe his stance. Instead, he shrugged and said, "I'll use whatever word you want, but let's not pretend the left hasn't changed." Boom. That's when the real tension kicked in. Because at that moment, Maher wasn't just talking about a word anymore. He was calling out an entire political shift. He pointed to how liberal politics have evolved, moving from fighting real issues to obsessing over ideological purity tests. The discussion was no longer about language. It was about how dissent within the left is handled, how quickly people are shut down for stepping outside the accepted narrative. Hostin was scrambling for a response, but Maher wasn't done. Not even close. And what he said next? It took the debate to an entirely new level. The entire room shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then, Maher dropped a bombshell. Turning to Hostin, he said, "Don't tell me the left hasn't changed." And at that moment, it was clear. He was about to go all in. Maher pointed out something that had everyone in the room on edge. How some on the left went from championing human rights to defending groups that actively oppose those very principles. He didn't hold back. He called out those protesting in support of extremist groups, questioning how that aligns with progressive values. That's when the real awkwardness set in. Nobody on The View wanted to challenge him on that point. Instead, Hostin pivoted, attempting to redirect the conversation. She claimed that the right had co-opted the term woke, using it as an insult to dismiss progressive causes. A classic distraction move. But the shift was obvious. Maher had taken the debate to a place they weren't prepared to go. And what happened next? The conversation took another unexpected turn. Maher didn't hold back. He locked eyes with Hostin and dropped a statement that split the room in two, some nodding in agreement, others visibly fuming. He called out the glaring double standards, pointing out how activists claim to fight for human rights while simultaneously defending groups that oppose those very rights. With unapologetic clarity, he said, "If you truly stand for social justice, why defend those who would strip away your rights the moment they had the chance?" And just like that, silence. The tension in the room was undeniable. You could see Hostin searching for a response, but there was no easy comeback. Any response she gave would only prove Maher's point. The audience felt the weight of the moment, with some hesitating to react, unsure whether to applaud or stay quiet. But Maher wasn't done yet. Instead of letting the conversation move on, he pressed further, ensuring the argument was fully exposed. "Call it whatever you want," he said, his voice measured but firm. "But the reality is, what used to be considered common sense is now controversial, and that's a problem." At that moment, it was clear Maher had just dismantled the argument in real time. And with that, the entire dynamic of the discussion shifted. What happened next? It only got more intense. The fact remains, ideas once considered common sense are now controversial. And that's a problem. At that moment, you could feel the energy shift in the room. The audience hesitated, unsure whether to applaud or sit in stunned silence. Meanwhile, Hostin was visibly unsettled. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more tense, Maher threw out one final statement, one that left everyone speechless. Then, he took it a step further. He pointed out the glaring contradiction within modern progressive circles, how some claim to fight for equality, yet support regimes that fundamentally oppose their values. Then, with calculated precision, Maher asked the panel, "Do you think the women on this panel would rather live in Israel or under Hamas?" And just like that, silence. The room went completely still. Nobody wanted to answer because the answer was obvious, and saying it out loud would completely unravel their argument. The awkward tension hung in the air. Even the audience didn't know how to react. Some clapped hesitantly, while others just sat there, staring, fully aware they had just witnessed the viral moment that would dominate headlines. With that single question, Maher exposed the uncomfortable reality that many refused to confront. And what happened next? It sent shockwaves far beyond the studio. But Maher wasn't done yet. He had one more point to make, and this one, it left Hostin with no way out. At this point, Hostin was desperate to regain control. She tried to pivot, shifting the focus to innocent civilians and using buzzwords to paint Maher as insensitive. But Maher, he saw it coming a mile away. Instead of taking the bait, he turned the conversation toward the media's role in shaping public perception. He didn't sugarcoat it. He flat out said, "It's not about truth anymore. It's about whatever fits the story they want to tell." And you could feel the tension spike in the room. Because here's the thing, everyone knows he's right, whether you lean left right, or somewhere in between, you know that media cherry picks narratives to fit a specific agenda. Maher even admitted he doesn't trust any side at face value anymore. Whenever I hear a story, I assume I'm only getting half the truth. I won't believe a word of it until I hear the other half. The moment hit hard. The audience processed what he just said, and for a brief second, even Hostin looked uncertain. But she wasn't giving up yet. She tried to push back, arguing that media outlets still provide vital information. But Maher was ready for that too. He leaned in, his voice steady. If that's true, then why do we see the same stories reported completely differently depending on the network? And just like that, silence. Her argument was already in shambles. And what happened next? It was the breaking point. Maher's debate on The View exposed deep contradictions in modern political discourse. His unapologetic stance left the panel speechless, forcing an uncomfortable reckoning. The conversation proved one thing: people are tired of scripted narratives. What do you think? Drop a comment, and subscribe for more hard-hitting discussions. Stay tuned.